All right, well, let me give the spiel real quick. So we are streaming to Rumble. We are off of YouTube. Full unedited recordings will always be at rumble.com/Theist Thesis. The censored, if necessary, version will be available on youtube.com/Tattoo Theist, the regular page under the podcast link, but it will be edited if necessary, which is most of the time. Please refrain from using specific places, names, descriptive terms, anything like that in your share, as I cannot edit it. Please also try not to swear, mostly myself, because it seems like I'm the first one to break that rule every time, so that we can have younger people here and we're not setting a bad example. Today, we're probably going to be talking briefly, because we have a small group today, about modesty, and then maybe continuing on Thursday if we don't feel like we hit enough of it, but try to keep any comments on something that is related to modesty. I'll probably keep the timer looser today because there's very few of us, but we'll try to keep it under 5 minutes per person, and then we can just cycle kind of back and forth and keep it more of a conversation. And you guys can just let me know in the chat because there's not that many people here. So I've got a few things I can pull up for us. If anybody is ready to go, let me know, or just unmute yourself because everybody's self-muted right now. If you're ready to go, you can just pop in. But if nobody's ready, I will prepare a few things here. Okay, so modesty. The standard definition you're going to get is kind of twofold. One that we're probably thinking of, and one that I feel like is not the first thing you think about when you think of modesty, but per definition, it's obviously accurate. The state or quality of being moderate in the estimation of one's own abilities, accomplishments, or value. Reserve or propriety in speech, dress, or behavior. That's the one we probably normally think of. Or moderate in size, quantity, or range. And then I read through some articles because modesty is kind of a hot topic again. And there's an article written by a woman that's rather long, but I pulled a smaller section of it that I thought was kind of interesting, and I'd be curious to see how anybody feels about it. So she wrote this. She said, "Brothers, I hear your cry, and I need you to hear mine." So she's talking to men, specifically within the Christian space. So brothers, I've heard your cry. I need you to hear mine. As a church, we should be figuring out how to empower women instead of using women to empower and protect men, referring to the kind of standard or most common understanding of modesty within a church setting is that women need to dress appropriately as to not tempt men into lustful thoughts or things like that. So as the church, we should be figuring out how to empower women instead of using women to empower and protect men. The body of Christ needs to analyze its willingness to place the burden of male lust on women's shoulders. We need to fight against a culture that sexualizes and commercializes women's bodies, but we also need to fight against the response culture in our churches that shame and hides them. There is nothing shameful about the female body. There is something shameful about a culture that idolizes and objectifies it. Let's ask Jesus to heal us and restore us instead of expecting others to behave in ways that will clear our path to righteousness. Basically referring to men needing to have control over their sexual desires and not push that responsibility solely or directly on women and rely on women to clear our path to righteousness, to not lusting of the eye. She continues, I have tried to take the modesty road. I lived it, preached it, prided myself in it. In the end, it only ever brought me and others grief, which I think is kind of interesting. So think twice before commenting on the modesty or immodesty of women's dress attire. Actually, think 7 times before making a judgment on a woman's appearance. I'm so sorry for being one of many to push this burden on other people. I see now how confusing it is. I have felt firsthand how painful it is. I don't necessarily know what the answer is, but I do know the truth. I am not a temptress. I am not dangerous. I am not an object. I am not a piece of woman meat. And my clothing doesn't matter. I do. I'd like to go off of that at the end there. My clothing doesn't matter, but I do. Is that true in every situation? And that's not rhetorical. So if anybody's down to jump in, I'd like to hear, because I don't personally agree with that. But I also don't think it's solely on a woman's shoulders. I think it's more complicated than that. But I think men have a requirement to also be modest as well. You guys got to remember, if you're in the chat on the voice thing, I can't see it and it doesn't pop up. So you got to hop in the event chat right above the voice channel. You'll still stay in the voice channel even if you leave. The audio stays on. And none of you are muted by me, I don't think. So I think you should be able to just unmute yourself. And if nobody's got anything to say, I've got more that I can read through. She almost had me. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was kind of what I thought as I was reading the article. I was with her most of the time, and then she lost me a little bit. All right, you guys got like 30 seconds. Otherwise, I'm just going to continue. I've got a couple articles here. But if that doesn't start a conversation, I don't know really what would. I was pretty direct. She's got a hard stance. Mystic is talking. I can't hear her at all. She's muted. All right, Mystic.
Hello?
There, now I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Beautiful. Okay, go ahead.
So I actually agree with her to a degree at the end. And I don't know if that's because I added context in, like the way that I took it. I feel like I added context to it.
What do you mean by that?
I'm sorry, wait, can you repeat the last sentence?
Yes, for sure. So the last chunk there was, I'm not a temptress, I'm not dangerous, I'm not an object, I'm not a piece of woman meat, my clothing does not matter, I do.
Yeah, so I agree with all of that, except the questionable thing is like my clothing doesn't matter.
Okay.
I think that, first of all, I think it's human nature for all of us to take things like extremely, like 0 to 100. Like if it's not this, then it is like this. I think that her saying my clothing doesn't matter doesn't mean she's gonna like go everywhere with everything hanging out. But I think that, I don't know. I think that it means that she doesn't have to like all of the rules that church has where your shorts can't be above like where your fingertips are, or you have to have like 5 fingers on your chest, or like those type of rules.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what she's saying. Like, I don't have to mind those. I could be wrong. That's the context that I took it as. But like, she's not saying that, oh, I can wear the most inappropriate swimsuit out, like where kids are around or something, and it doesn't matter because I'm me. Like, I don't feel it. I feel like the whole thing, especially women who grow up from purity culture, it's not like they really want to like dress like naked outside all the time. It's just that they, I don't know, like don't like want to be able to like dismantle this thing where of all of the rules and all of the like of the rules, what I just mentioned, how long your clothes are supposed to be, they just want to like get that taken away. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. So would you say the conversation should be more about what is okay to wear? Like where does modesty start and end? Because it sounds like you agree with modesty, but to a point. And that women kind of, and you obviously have this view that it's you specifically because you grew up around or in purity culture to a degree. You have very much a view consistent with that. Whereas other people, you know, maybe not. I grew up partially in Catholic school where the fingers between the woman's knee, the girl's knee, and the bottom of her skirt that had to be respected. But there were rules for guys' dress code too. It just wasn't about skin showing, but it's because guys had to wear slacks, they had to wear a polo, so nothing was showing anyways. And we don't have this gear towards like women are just not as sexually driven. Men are more sexually driven. Most men are heterosexual. Therefore, what we're sexually driven to is going to be women. So within a Christian space where lust and modesty and things like that are pushed and are perpetuated and are supported, it's kind of just a sad reality that the burden ends up on the woman's shoulders. But I think there are other similar concepts that do lie on kind of men's shoulders. I just don't think it's been as heavy as what we've put on women specifically with something like modesty. But do you think the conversation should then be more about, well, then what is appropriate and what is not appropriate? What is the woman responsible for wearing or not wearing?
I think, well, first of all, I think that the whole idea of comparing like men's dress codes to women's is a little bit unfair, because the whole reason why men have to wear slacks instead of sweatpants isn't for sexual reasons. It's out of respect, especially in church. But like for women, as with most things now, since being on like this side of the cross and everything, I think that we shouldn't teach people what to do and what not to do, but like, where is their heart? Like if you are in line and if you actually want these things, then naturally you'll dress a particular way. So my biggest thing is telling women that they have to dress a certain way. It perpetuates like this idea that we are for men's gratification. And if we dress perfectly and if we're perfectly pure and everything, then if a man, it was like so good all his life and he waits until marriage, then he can have a woman and like ruin her, basically. So it's like, if we stop telling women, not stop telling to women, like obviously we have like reasons to dress up, like self-respect, and also obviously we want to, I don't know, I feel like the focus should be on telling men that women are equals, like they're just as capable, they have equal value, and they have just the amount of brain as men do as well. Because there's so many studies that show that when a man sees a woman, like the less clothes she wears, the less he views her as a person. And so I feel like putting the bar at like making sure that people are equal and making sure that people all value each other as people is important first, especially in church.
But the reason for that is not that men view them as, at least from the studies that I've seen that sound similar to what you're talking about, it's that men don't respect them. It's not that we think they're less of a person or less human or anything like that. It's that the less a woman wears, the less we respect them. And the reason that usually comes across is that because they don't respect themselves. So like men are not attractive to a woman who has no self-respect. Would you disagree?
Yeah.
Which I assume you would.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I just think that there's other ways of determining someone's self-respect than their clothing.
For sure.
So
I think much better ways.
Because if you're judging people that you don't even know, like strangers out on the street or mall, like, oh, she has everything hanging out, she has no self-respect, like you don't know that. So it's like, I feel like, first of all, you're not we can't really judge, especially strangers, like that. So if you want to judge people who are close to you, your first motive shouldn't be like clothing, like it should be something deeper.
But then I guess what would that, because I half agree and I half disagree. What is the reason that a woman would dress that way? Like what are some good reasons that you could kind of justify?
What way are we talking about?
Like kind of from what you said she has it all hanging out. So I can kind of picture that in my head. Maybe low cut top where there's a lot of cleavage. Maybe it cuts off right under her boobs, so her stomach's showing, and maybe she's got shorts on where part of her butt cheeks are hanging out. So is there any way within a Christian context to justify wearing that in public? And if there is, which you might have one, then how do you justify it? What is it? Where is the self-respect? Why is she wearing that?
that's kind of, I don't know. That doesn't, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that because it's like I personally never had a want to dress like that. And it's like other girls like deal with that. I think that my predominant issue is people have told me whenever I wear clothes that are like definitely covering up like maybe an inch of my stomach might show if I raise my arms, or if my shorts fall like just below like my butt or whatever. Like I've literally had people tell me like, well, you need to go cover up. Like they throw me in the same like category as the girls who, so I feel like there's, I don't know, like I'm talking about people who don't, I don't know, there's a difference. There's a line between having everything showing and then wearing clothes that are like summertime. And also it's super, there's such a nuance to it because like bodies are really different. And I think that, well, I know whenever I was younger, like me and my friend had like the same swimsuit, except like it was on a summer camp. The youth leaders literally asked me to go on a t-shirt, but they didn't say anything to her just because like I went into puberty before her.
Yeah, sure.
So it's like, so you can't like talk about modesty without also acknowledging that it has to do with like shaming women or girls basically for like having a different body type from another, you know?
I don't know. I guess that's tougher. That's tougher. Why does the body type necessarily matter? Because whether you're developed, I mean, if we're talking about young kids, I feel like it's already kind of a different conversation. Because as an adult, technically, you do whatever you want. You dress however you want. You act however you want. You portray yourself however you want. As a child, you're still kind of under the rule of your home or of your parents. Yeah. And as a child also, we want to protect children's innocence. We definitely don't want like I have a 6-year-old. I don't want older men looking at my child in any other way than she's an innocent child. So I would never let her dress certain ways. So I guess if we're talking after puberty, is there any variation in the appearance of your body and how that affects modesty, do you think? Does that make sense?
Yeah, what I was going to say is, or can you hear me?
Yeah, you're in.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I agree that, you say like, what's a woman thinking when she wears that? Like, I get that point of view too, but I also think, like you said, men should have more responsibility. Like just because they're dressed that way doesn't give you the right to, catcall or, go up and hit on them, or like, I feel like it needs to be 50-50, but also like Mystic said, if you go to church and you have a true relationship with God and or blah, 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 in your heart, and probably not going to want to dress that way. But if you do, like at the gym or you're at the beach, when you're at the beach or you're at a pool, everybody's in bathing suits. I don't feel like you should have it all hanging out, but even if you do, I think it should be kind of 50-50. I think men should still need to step up and stop being so disgusting.
Gross, yeah.
That's true. That's true.
That's kind of the thing that gets me to a point is in my life experience, so totally anecdotal, the majority of women whom I respect, whether it's because of their beliefs, whether it's because of how they conduct themselves, how they portray themselves, or how they dress, or a culmination of all of them, those women just don't dress like that. And I don't know if that's because they have self-respect, because they're confident and know who they are, because they're not seeking attention. And then a lot of women whom I have no respect for seem to dress that way. So it seems it correlates with kind of who the person is. And I would say the same thing about men. It's not just women. I would say the exact same thing about men. Men that I don't respect dress and act kind of a certain way. And then the opposite is true too. Men I respect seem to dress and portray themselves in a different way.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the... Oh, go ahead, Mystic.
Okay. I do think that that's a really difficult thing as well, because women have such a huge pressure, especially the women you're talking about. Like we have a huge pressure, and also, well, I mean, in my case, severe trauma about because little things pile up, little comments, little rules, little things pile up into like a form of CPTSD, where it's like even now outside of church, like outside of having any rules, like I have nobody telling me how I can or can't dress. I have a lot of anxiety about it because of all of those things that piled up. So it's a little bit, I don't, it's kind of difficult for me to like say what I think about that because a lot of women have that.
Yeah, sure.
Like anxiety about it.
Sure.
So.
But so then let's do this. Let's take any past experience, any past trauma and remove it. So objectively, exactly. Objectively, does the way a woman dress matter? Whether it's for herself, whether it's for the protection of men's like that's part of the thing I don't agree with is that women should be forced to dress a certain way so that men don't feel tempted. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because women are not responsible for how much self-control men have. Now, if a woman is dressed that way and coming over and rubbing his chest and trying to touch his crotch and acting all sexy, then she is to blame. But if she is just dressed a certain way, living her life, not paying any attention to him, then that is 100% on him. I would still question, why does she feel the need to dress that way? But then within that context, it makes it a her problem, not a pressure from men problem. So why is she wanting to dress that way? But if we look at it objectively, why would a self-respecting woman, and I don't, it's not a gotcha. I genuinely am curious. Why would a self-respecting woman, taking the men's opinion out of it, his lust out of it, why would a self-respecting woman, in whatever context outside of maybe the beach or whatever, why would she feel the need to dress scantily? And again, like chest out, ass out, whatever, like you can picture it. Why?
Objectively, if I had to say, I'd probably say 90-something% of that would be attention seeking. But
I agree.
I mean, nowadays people not to use it as a good app, but like the Tinder, whatever the dating apps, you get to see a girl for like a few seconds and you have to decide if you like her or not. So I feel like maybe some of them may be doing that, but I don't know.
Is that self-respecting though?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't think any less of them myself. It just wouldn't be my cup of tea.
That's really hard for me to answer because I can't think of a reason they would deliberately do it, because every experience I've had, like with myself or like my friends, it's always something on accident. Like it doesn't matter what kind of shorts I wear, if they're not like to my knees, like my like legs will eat them up. Like I don't know. I sometimes, every time someone has said something, it's completely on accident. And also, this is going to sound like a stupid cop-out, but a lot of the times the cuter clothes that might make us feel good or like look better on us, like are cut in a way that's kind of revealing, just because I guess it's like a societal thing now. And so it's like, if I want to be modest or whatever, quote unquote, it's a lot harder to find clothes in general.
Yeah, I feel like people like you are like, that's fine. I mean, if you got a little bit showing, I think that's okay. You're just trying to look nice. But I feel like like Joe said, everything hanging out way too short or something like that. I feel like you're not doing that. You may like to dress, that, but I don't feel like that's an accident.
Yeah. What's also really weird is like, I don't know if this is because I don't really go out. Well, I do go outside, but like, I don't really, I don't really like see girls, like people dressing like that anymore. Like
I do all the time.
Really?
I
all
really
the time.
Even
all the
with
time.
where I live, like I hardly do. And if they are, it's because they're on the beach,
Yeah, and I think that's like the one acceptable place. But
yeah.
I see it all the time. Kat was with me about an hour ago, and we saw it and both made comments about it. So we see it all the time, actually. And then like an hour before that too, when we were out walking in nature with my kid, I see it constantly, and it drives me absolutely insane. But I do want to go back to what you said, Mystic, and Kat, you're unmuted.
Yeah.
So we'll get Kat in real quick, but I wanna maybe go back to what you said a minute ago, and then maybe Kat has something to say about that too. But you mentioned the clothing that you feel like makes you look cute ends up being something that is more revealing. Am I conveying that properly?
Okay. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't know how Kat feels about this. Like maybe she has a different experience, but sometimes if I find like a shirt or like I don't know. See, none of my clothes are really revealing, but of the things that are more so, it's because it's just cut in a way that doesn't make me look like a box or a door because I really struggle with that looking boxy. Like if I wear loose fitting clothes, like I look like a little boy, you know? So it's like if I find a shirt that makes me look more put together, more feminine or whatever, it automatically does show a lot more skin.
So, but do you think that would stand the test of time? If we go back to the 50s, if we go back to the early 1900s, women kind of
no.
always dressed a certain way. They still looked very feminine. They still looked beautiful, but nothing really was revealing. So I think that's more of, and you did mention it, that it's more of a cultural thing. It's more of a societal structure.
Oh my gosh. I'm really sorry. I really want to hear what Kat has to say, but I keep having thoughts. The last thing that I was going to say is I literally saw this girl on TikTok compare like toddler clothes to each other and how the boys' clothes, like the shorts, were automatically like in every case like 3 inches longer than the girls for like 4-year-olds as well. So I feel like societally, like whatever, however you say that word,
you said it right.
it is like a thing. Like they make shorts a lot shorter for girls, and they make like the clothes, they cut it a certain way as well, like the tops.
For sure. So, I just bought my kid a bunch of new clothes. I wouldn't buy her shorts because they were entirely too short.
Yeah.
And in the boys, it is different. They're longer. They go down to like the knees. The girls' shorts for 4-year-olds, 6-year-olds are like 3 inches long. It's wild. Okay, Kat, oh, go ahead, Drew, and then we'll bring Kat in.
No, I was gonna say I feel like Kat should have a lot to say. She works on muscle cars and stuff, so I'm sure there's guys all the time like, hey.
Oh yeah, but and then Kat, what about the clothing thing with the way it fits, the way it makes you feel? I feel like what kind of where she's coming from is that societally and culturally, we've become conditioned to believe that certain clothes on women are cute. And within our culture, that's usually scantily. It's not this old-timey, modest version of clothing. It's what makes you look curvy, what accentuates your chest and your butt and your thighs and your hips. And then I feel like younger women, like Mystic and definitely younger, have kind of been conditioned to believe, whether they realize it or not, maybe it's mostly subconscious, but they feel cuter in clothes that do accentuate these things.
Okay, so very true. And you have been clothes shopping with me before.
Yeah.
Finding shorts is an absolute nightmare. I cannot stand it. In fact, I will buy maybe like 4 pairs of shorts every like 5 years just so that I don't have to go and try on shorts and be upset because it doesn't cover my butt. And it's not like I have some weird body type, you know, like none of it fits right. My question is that why is nobody questioning why they're being produced like that? Because here's the thing, back in the day, in the 50s, in the 1800s, whatever time frame you want to look at, women still had shapewear to accentuate their bodies. It was in the form of corsets, it was in the form of garter belts, and so on and so forth. They still showed the curvature of their body. And in the 1800s, it was a lot more difficult, right? Because you had like 18 layers of fabric all over you.
Yeah.
But it's not a new thing that women want to feel feminine, and we feel feminine in our bodies because our bodies are naturally feminine, right? So how come it is that all the clothes that you and I both probably think are cute and that we would like to wear, why is nobody asking why it is the way it is? Because if you look, I know, Sunny, because if you look at what is being produced in music videos and has been for a few decades now, if you look in movies and if you look at magazines when you're at the grocery store, what do you see? It's all tantalizing.
Yeah.
It's women in like scandalous clothing, and it's them being empowered, and it's them feeling this, and they're a woman, hear me roar, and so on and so forth. So of course, when we go shopping, it doesn't matter really where you go shopping at, you're going to find clothes that you like that aren't going to technically fit you. They're just not. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's because of feminism to a point. It's because of the fact that we live in a culture where we want to feel like we can walk around half naked, pretty much, if you want to go that far, and not feel like, you're going to be attacked or catcalled and whatever. There's a reason for that. It's not like somebody just woke up one day and was like, you know what, we'll just start making clothes so that women's breasts are up to their chin and their butts are out of their shorts. That didn't happen by mistake. That was
Yeah.
not a mistake.
No.
In my opinion.
I mean,
don't think
that's
it was
what
a mistake in the
sells.
slightest.
Right? That's what sells. So why would they make anything else when the minority of the population wants shorts that cover their ass and the majority want shorts that show their ass or reveal their ass? It's not a good business decision to make the longer shorts. It's not. And the reason we got there, like you said, is just because that's the way culture has shifted. That's the way Hollywood shifted. That's what became normal. The things that I see on women, on girls walking out of high schools here,
It's
whether
disturbing.
I'm north or south in Illinois, it doesn't matter. It hurts my heart to watch these young women dress like that. And it's like you said, we're pushing to empower women, but at the same time, all we've done is manipulate women to give it up easier, to be easier,
believe that.
to dress the way men want them to dress so that men can objectify them, and then to empower women to give their sexual being away to men for whatever, just cause. So there's less value to it. And I like we've talked about in the past, I believe that goes both ways too. I think a man who sleeps with a bunch of women is just as much of a slut, if you want to use that term, as a woman who does that. I don't think it's just a woman who is that. I think the fact that guys get high fives for it is disgusting. I think they're both should be looked down on. And not that they're gross or anything like that, but you're throwing away your value. Sex is the one thing in a relationship that is with that person you're sharing it with. It's the one thing that is different than any other relationship you're going to have your entire life on this planet, is a physical sexual relationship. So if you just give that away and teach women to dress that way so that men can objectify them, and then tell women we're empowering them, when really we've gone so far backwards. It's just that women feel like they have more choice with who they sleep with, when in reality they're losing any respect from men. Women are losing their respect for men, and it's just, it all has come crumbling down around these cultural norms around sexuality.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah, I actually do really, really agree with everything you and Kat just said. But I do also have another thing, is this is gonna sound really weird, but what type of bodies do you see that have that problem with clothes?
That's the problem, is all of them.
Because, well, okay.
So I'll see like bigger girls dressing the same way as, a very stereotypically model looking thin girl. There's no regard for how you look while wearing it. It's just that they seem to just want to look sexual, whether it looks good on them because they're thin and whatever, or they're, overweight, whether it's a lot overweight or just moderately overweight, dressed identical. And again, anecdotally, totally just my experience. I see it all the time.
Yeah. I just know that whether or not people think both type of bodies, all type of bodies, it is inappropriate, it is received and criticized in different ways. I do want to say that. But I feel like clothes, the way that they're made, are for that specific model type of body type. Because for me to find, I have so many problems with this. If I want to find a dress, I was literally just looking for this dress, and if I buy my size, my chest is hanging out. So then I get a size bigger, and my chest might be covered, but it's way too big for me. So it's I don't know what, it looks like a bag on me. I don't know, what am I supposed to do here? Because I feel like all the clothes are made for girls who are smaller, or have that type of, especially straight size clothes are like that. So then that puts up the whole thing, like what I said, like about the summer camp situation. Like girls who are smaller may not get dress coded, or it may not seem like as much of a problem as girls who aren't like like if they are more developed. Like,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
So
But I think the, whatever, model looking girl, I think they have just as hard time, kind of like Kat was saying. Kat's super thin. She has just as hard of a time finding anything that fits to what she believes is modest. So, but I definitely get what you're saying. Or maybe am I misunderstanding?
I don't know. I don't.
I think regardless of your body type, as a woman, you have a really hard time finding clothes that would be considered traditionally modest, because they don't mass produce them anymore, because women don't wear them much anymore outside of like jeans and stuff like that. But even yoga pants, they show every curve on your body, and those have become very normal. And I don't think they're necessarily not modest, but it's a new thing.
Yeah, see that every like leggings and everything like that.
Yeah.
Literally, I don't think that there's anything like immodest or wrong with those at all. I've always been so attacked for it, but it's like I don't know. I don't understand how those or skinny jeans or anything like that is wrong in any way, because it's not like like how much do I have to cover up? Like how much is it a problem? How much am I going to be a problem? If every inch of my skin is a problem, then like this turns into self-internalization. Like I like literally that type of thing. Like, well, how much of my skin is terrible? How much of my skin is going to make someone upset? Then it turns into like, well, I'm just so evil. My skin is terrible. Like I am the thing that is sinful. And then it turns into self-hate, low self-esteem, and like all of those type of things too.
But all of that is just toxic thinking. Like that's something that a woman may or may not feel, and usually consistent with your background. So with your background, that makes perfect sense. Whereas another woman in an identical situation with a very dissimilar background might not think any of that stuff, because she doesn't have any of that.
Maybe so, but like I've seen so many, like there are so many statistics on it, and like I keep reading all of these books of girls who have the same problem with it, like the same.
Oh, for sure. It's huge.
I don't know, and even like my friends who may say, like in my personal life, I have two friends who are still in the church, and still the way that they talk about themselves, they don't even know it. They think that they love themselves, they think all this, but the way that they talk about themselves, the way they are about food and everything, like it's so bad, and it makes me so sad, because the church just tells them, yeah, they're being good, but really they just hate themselves, but they don't even know it.
Yeah, so I think you can get to being good label either toxically or healthfully. And sometimes it's changing the frame of the mind and the intentions and how you're going about earning the label of good. And sometimes it has to do with physical actions and physical choices that result in you being labeled good. So I think either way, I think we've been extremely toxic to women, specifically within Christianity. And so I think you have a huge sect of in and out of Christianity, of young women who have grown into their 20s and 30s now, who are severely damaged psychologically when they were younger, in similar ways to kind of what you're talking about. But I think you could achieve that good status in a 100% healthy way and do all the same stuff. And I think you can attain it in a 100% toxic way, which is kind of what you just explained. But let me ask you guys this, and anybody who wants to reply, I'd be curious, because the yoga pants thing made me think of this. What if men started a trend where we wore something very similar to yoga pants? So they're so tight that you can see every curve and shape and bump and whatever on a man's crotch. The whole thing. Because that's essentially what yoga pants are. And depending on how a woman's standing or how she bends over or whatever, you can see everything as far as outlines go. So would it be socially or ethically appropriate if a man wore the same thing? where you could see every curve of his butt, every curve of his crotch, where everything starts and where everything ends. Would that be different or would that be the same? Is that something society should accept or is that something society should push back on? I think it's hard.
Well, I'm sorry. Never mind.
Oh,
Whoever.
sorry. I
Say
didn't
something,
realize
Kat?
I was still I didn't realize that I wasn't muted, so I let out a huge sigh. I'm sorry. You can go.
Cat jump in after.
I think that it is a lot different because,
Yeah, why?
like, anatomically, it's a lot different because, like,
Why?
I don't know how to.
I get psychologically where you
It's
are,
so
but you have to
awkward.
be able to justify that because I've seen women bend over in yoga pants where I can see the lines of their crotch. I can see where everything starts and where everything ends,
Okay.
which means I could picture
So,
it. So why is that any different?
Well, okay, first of all, just because some girls have bad fitting yoga pants or are wearing the wrong color or got them shoved up in all her crevices doesn't mean yoga pants are or I keep saying yoga pants. I'm Gen Z, they're leggings, okay? It doesn't mean that all leggings are bad. It just mean that she may have like a bad size or something because on my leggings, I mean, I definitely do the squat test, do the mirror test every time I get leggings just to make sure because I go to the gym and so it's like I don't want everything showing because the fabric stretches. But like it's so different because we don't have our like sexual organs hanging out all the time. Like if we wear leggings like that, like it's if it is that it's like I don't want to say it like this, but almost intentional, or the leggings are not the right size for her.
I'll play devil's advocate real quick. What if women or men, or I guess women, since you're talking about different size of things, what if a woman just wore, like, I know this wouldn't happen, I'm just devil's advocate. What if they just wore body paint, like paint all over? I mean, that's kind of what leggings look like sometimes. It's like they're just wearing black paint.
Sometimes it does, yeah. If you, especially if it's the nude color, sometimes I'll look and be like, holy shit, is she not wearing pants? And then it takes a second. You're like, oh, okay. All right. But I would say that. And also, what about a woman's chest? Because that's become culturally fine. Women wearing shirts that are so tight, you can see every curve where everything starts and ends, absolutely all of it, because the shirt is so tight. That's okay. And those are definitely hanging out the same way a guy's crotch would be hanging out.
That's true.
So why is that okay and the other not?
The body paint thing, it's not. I don't think you can really compare that because fabric is still a lot thicker than paint. But like, I don't know. It depends on the top situation.
Why?
I
or
think
how?
because there's a lot of different types. So what I'm around a lot is like women who may have had like breast augmentation and they wear extremely tight shirts and it's like it's so uncomfortable. Like even I like will feel uncomfortable about it. Like even people in my family that has like they whatever. I think we all like do you know the stereotype I'm talking about? Like it's like
I think so.
So like a lot of times it's like older women, but like women who have like oh that freaked me out that it said live. So women will get like breast augmentation or something, and so like what is it? Proportionally to the rest of her body, she's got like they're way too big, and then she wears like a tight shirt with like a push-up bra and everything, and that's really uncomfortable. Like that's what I'm talking about. That I think is attention seeking. Like I don't like that.
So look at the screen real quick. I just shared
oh my
a
gosh.
browser. What about this?
Okay.
Is this okay? Because I see this every day of my life. What about this? Is that okay? Because that is no different in any way. I don't think anybody could ever change my mind. That is no different than if a guy had pants that were that tight where you could see the curves of his sexual junk.
I mean, this is also getting into the topic. Oh wait, This is also like getting into the topic if never mind. I don't want to talk about that.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It's up to you. No pressure. If you don't want to talk about something, you do not have to.
It's just like a woman's chest first of all, isn't made for like sex or like sexual gratification in any way. It's literally made to feed her baby. So the way that culture has sexualized women's boobs, and even I'm not saying that it's all society's fault. Like to a degree, women also do it as well. So it's like I just don't I don't know. The fact that they sexualize it is so annoying, and that's like I don't really understand that, and I just never really get into that
women or
topic
men?
because
The fact that they sexualize it, they being women or they being men?
I mean, like society as a whole, like it's a societal thing that it's like, oh, that, you know, and then sometimes women, well, most of the time women, most of the time men, like both of them sexualize it.
Maricela!
But why is that weird to you? That's as old as time. Men have,
I know,
forever, been sexually attracted to women's chests.
Um,
All right, go ahead. She muted.
well, I mean, it's okay. I just, it's weird to me because for what, like, it's not, they're made to like feed babies. They're not supposed to be like a sexual thing, but like, I don't know when it started. I don't know anything about the history, but it's like, it feels like, I don't even know. Like, they're literally made so that we can feed babies. So why did they turn it into like such a sexual thing to begin with? And it's so annoying.
I would tell you, think about it the same way as why men are attracted to women in high heels or why men are attracted to women with lipstick. When women are ovulating, their lips are brighter than normal. So that is why women started wearing lipstick. It was to make you look like that all of the time. So it was to have men find you more attractive all of the time. Because when women are ovulating, whether it's just an animal or we bring it to humans, men are way more physically attracted and physically drawn to a woman. So in a similar way, women in high heels, there are a lot of theories about this one. This one isn't as specific. The lips and lipstick thing is 100%. The high heels, there's a lot of theories that evolutionarily men are drawn to women in high heels because it puts them in kind of a place of predator and prey in a sexual way. So that is partly why men are drawn to high heels. So regardless of whether we agree with it or not, these things are sexual now. So now women's chests are a very similar thing. When women are ovulating, the way a woman's chest appears, the fullness, etc., can shift. And during those times, men are more attracted to women. Once a woman is carrying a baby and then providing for a baby with their chest, same thing. Men have a physical, innate response to that, where they're much more drawn to the woman, whether it's due to protection or whether it's due to just sexual drive. Men have more of the sexual draw towards a woman during those times and because of those facts. So whether we agree with it or not, I totally get what you're saying. I completely get what you're saying. But whether we like it or not, a woman's chest is 100% sexual at this point. So within the context of the conversation, it's really no different. In my opinion, the same way a woman wearing lipstick is no different, and the same way a woman wearing high heels is no different.
I think that the only time is like if a woman has to breastfeed or something in public. I feel like if something happens, then, I mean, that's not sexual. You can't get upset about it. But like in every other context, then yeah, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Random guys ogling at a woman breastfeeding in public is gross.
Yeah, but it's like
inappropriate.
Yeah, it's like people like shame, like saying like, oh my gosh, like she's like go somewhere else or something. Like that. Like that's gross. I don't like that. But
the fact that they ask women to go somewhere else.
to go somewhere else, or like, I don't know. It's just the whole situation about that. I don't know. I just like leave them alone. Like they're just trying to feed their baby. Like that's the biggest thing. But like outside of that, I guess I don't know. I agree. I'm thinking about it too hard, so I don't really know my opinions anymore. But I agree that it's whatever.
Okay. All right. We're gonna unmute you. All right, Rodriguez, you're in. Actually, you're gonna have to unmute yourself now. My mute on you is off. There you go.
I'm so sorry.
So hold on. The question, because I really would like to hear feedback on this, is why can women wear shirts and pants that are skin tight so that you can see their sexual parts in great detail? And you might have not been here. I pulled some stuff up on the screen of examples, and I can do that again. But why would it be inappropriate for a man to wear something similar to yoga pants where you can see the same type of detail of his sexual organs?
Like the guy's gray sweatpants, I think is something I hear a lot.
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea. But basically where you can see you can see where everything starts and everything ends.
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of things. And I'm not saying that it is okay, but I do remember one time someone made a comment to me about something not being appropriate. And I'm actually pretty modest and conservative in my appearance. And I'm aware that how I'm built and whatever. And I gained weight, you know, so something that was loose fitting once upon a time, like it's like I didn't mean to, you know. Certain things just kind of happen. I guess not that there's an excuse for it, but I mean, sometimes I think, I don't know how to put it nicely. If you're a girl and you look a certain way, I do think you tend to be a little bit more of a target, maybe, and maybe a little bit more picked on than someone who is built differently. And you guys could both be wearing the same thing. Like that's a very
That's
real
what I was
thing.
saying. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier too.
But and then breastfeeding, you guys, like I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm pretty private, and I breastfed my children for a year, and I never did it in public. I just couldn't. Like to me, I was like, at the end of the day, I'm exposing myself. I don't even like wearing bathing suits out in public. Like I just get, which I guess is a whole nother part of the conversation, but yeah, I never did it. But in terms of like the science of it, I will say, yeah, the breasts are, oh, are you guys there?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, okay, sorry, my screen went black. In terms of the science for it, like yes, it is for breastfeeding babies. However, there is a science to why we are built like that. Because if you look at women having hips, that's also for childbearing. So it is kind of meant to get men's attention to some degree for reproductive purposes, whether we're consciously aware of it or not.
Yes.
Even wearing makeup, like as you don't think of that consciously, but when you're putting on lipstick and blush, you're actually doing it to enhance certain features and to look more healthy and attractive for reproductive reasons, right? So that's why the trend now is to get, you know, make your butt look bigger, your hips look wider, or your breast bigger. And whether they're aware of it or not, it is to look healthy and attractive in a reproductive way, as insane as it sounds. And it may not be completely shallow, not to be on men's side of this, but women, sometimes we're more attracted to men who look strong because they are a symbol of safety and protection. Like it is pretty biological, you know?
Yes, 100%. I think denying any of that at its core, biologically, I think is a denial of just absolute truth. And then once you take it to more of the complex cultural standings, it gets a little bit more complicated. But why as a culture are we, or have we, because we haven't always, so why have we as a culture become accepting and okay with women dressing in things that show everything, even if you're covered all the way, We see every line, every detail, everything. But if we were to do that as men, that would be culturally unacceptable. To me personally, it's a logical inconsistency. It's a cultural inconsistency. These are things that have become normal that if we were to just change it, society would have a hard time accepting that. And there was a slight version of that with the whole yoga pants incoming into society. And my opinion is that the reason the yoga pants thing didn't really set people off is because prior to that, for many years, we had women convert to skinny jeans. So we already kind of got a taste of it. But yeah, 100%, 100%. But we had super tight pants, so you could see a woman's ass and you can see her hips and you could see her thighs. But at least there was a lot of cloth still. So it kind of deconditioned us. It kind of conditioned us to being okay with seeing those details slowly over time. So that by the time yoga pants came in, where you can truly see every detail of a woman's physique, it was not that big of a deal. Whereas I think if we went straight from flare jeans in the 70s to yoga pants that we see now, or leggings, whatever you're going to call them, I think that would be more of a cultural shock. But why are we okay with, in my opinion, objectifying women and putting their valuable sexual standing on display for anyone who they come in contact with at the grocery store, at the mall, or whatever? But if men were to do it, it would likely get a lot of pushback that it's inappropriate. Why is it not appropriate for one, inappropriate for the other? That is my question.
I disagree, though. Do you men honestly get pushback if you're not?
No. What I'm saying is, if men started wearing yoga pants where you could see every part of our parts,
No, yeah, I get it.
all of it, I think we would get pushback. If I wore pants that were skin tight where you could see how big my stuff was and see where everything starts and ends, I think I would absolutely get pushback. I don't think culture and society and people out in public would just be okay with that. I think a lot of people would stay silent, but they stay silent about murder. I think a lot of people would not be okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that also another type of like quote unquote pushback would also be like men who wear that stereotypically aren't straight.
I was just gonna say, yeah. Or like an aerobics video in the 80s with like who was that curly haired guy? Russell Simmons?
That's a good example.
I don't think we were thinking of him like that. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't know that there was pushback. I don't think they do that for men. I'm just saying.
Well, it never became normal though. Now every woman on the planet, virtually, obviously being over the top, is wearing yoga pants. But what if all of a sudden every man virtually wore pants where you knew exactly how big his junk was because you could see the outline of it perfectly? I personally would not be okay with that because I don't want to see that. And in the same way, I don't want to see every line of a woman's chest because this random woman in public is not mine. That is such a huge part of someone's value because that is the only thing you share with somebody that you don't share with other people having a relationship. That sexual connection that you share with your spouse is the one real differentiating factor between your relationship with them and with the rest of humanity. So I'm vehemently opposed to either men or women wearing things like that. I just thought that was odd. Do you have anything else you want to throw out here, and then we'll bring Maze in a minute?
No, I mean I agree with that. That's fair. I do think women are targeted, but yes, that's fair.
In what way do you think they're targeted?
Well, just I mean, I have a tendency to, play devil's advocate in a lot of these situations, but I mean, there are situations like I have 2 daughters, right? So I know what it's like when someone tries to say something or make a comment, and I know my kids' hearts. I know other parents too and their daughters and maybe their intentions, and from what I've seen and what they post and different things like that. I don't think that it's fair to make a blanket statement, though. Do you get what I'm saying?
I think so. Maybe give an example. But I agree that blanket statements are a problem, really, with anything.
Yeah. yeah, or I mean, like there's one woman I know, she, not that it's okay, but I mean, like she lost a lot of weight and was happy and wanted to go on a date and look, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Sure.
I mean, I agree. Yes, you want to be respectful of others and different things like that. But yeah, I don't know.
So I'll ask you one more question and then we'll bring Maze in. I think, because I don't think you were here when we were talking about it, but do you, so I was kind of saying that in my anecdotal experience, not objective, totally subjective, is that most of the women I come in contact with who wear self-respect in the way that they talk, in the way that they convey themselves, in the way that they stand or walk, in the way their face moves, where a woman, those women I immediately have massive respect for. And they seem to dress modestly in my anecdotal experience 100% of the time. And then the minute and it could be on the phone, I don't even have to see her, but I talk to a woman, and again, this goes for guys too, but we're talking about women primarily. So I talk to a woman who I have no respect for because of the way she conveys herself, the way that she talks, the way that she portrays who she is, no self-respect seemingly. And then if I were to see her, it's usually a woman who is anything but traditionally modest. Do you think there's anything to that? Where women who, and again, blanket statements, I totally agree, but in general, maybe women who lack self-respect end up dressing in an immodest way, and women who have more self-respect and have more confidence end up dressing in more of a modest way?
Oh, I am so reluctant to agree with you.
It's hard.
Well, you got to understand, if you're a church girl, you got to understand, we've been raised that, you know, if we wear shorts that are 2 inches above our knees, we are making a man stumble.
Yeah.
If I wear a tank top, I live in Vegas, man, where it's 120 degrees. Okay. And I got to go out there and, like, I think I went into a Baptist church and the pastor passive aggressively said to me that a woman needs to be covered from her neck to her ankles. So when I tell you I'm reluctant to agree with you, I've got all these other situations, you know, that I think a lot of women unfortunately have experienced. But yes, what you are saying is true.
Yeah, and I like the way that you
But,
said that, because we were, again, before you were here, we talked about all that kind of, because I grew up in
sorry.
Catholic school, so no, not at all. But where women had to have, you know, a certain number of fingers between their skirt and their knee, and all this and that guys weren't allowed to wear shorts and blah blah blah. But then, so because of that, and Mystic has kind of a background in purity culture, and that has done massive damage to women.
Yeah.
So then we were like, okay, well, let's pull it back and just objectively, without any of the past experiences, is this true or is this not true? And it seems like, at least for the most part, you think it's true. With no background of trauma or going through hell in church, being kind of attacked as a woman for dressing immodestly.
Yeah, which is, I guess, a different topic for another day. But
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm the one who submitted the thing about my daughters in the football game.
Yeah, I want to get to that. I have it pulled up. So let me bring.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Let me bring Maze in real quick and give her a chance to speak. So I will mute you for a second, and then remember, guys, if you want to come back in, just throw it in the chat. We'll bring you back in. We just want to give everybody kind of a chance to speak. Maze, you're good.
Hey, you can hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I find it really interesting that not too long ago in our culture, frowned upon to show your calf or your ankle, and that was incredibly immodest. In the first one-piece swimsuit, the woman who wore it on a beach actually was arrested for like public indecent. And we've gone from that to like essentially Nicki Minaj and Anaconda videos. So I'm not really sure what happened, but my guess would be that we've really removed scripture, we've removed God out of a lot of our morals, at least in America. And our standards are completely different. Our culture as a whole is also completely different than other generations, like our grandparents' parents. They did things quite differently than we do. But I would also venture to say that women who dressed a certain way, I would almost bet my life that they did not have a good father. There is no woman who dresses like showing off everything that had a whole family, good dad, no sexual abuse. Like, I would say that was almost unheard of. And I would say the correlation between immodesty is largely what you are subjected to from childhood. What happened in your like earlier years? Were you abused or were you not? And I think a lot of sex workers, a lot of women that are in the porn industry, in Playboy, I would say probably all, if not most of them, have a background of abuse. And we seem to think that in our society, women are at a disadvantage, like men kind of run the show, and we have to essentially talk ourselves and compete with other women. And then you have Victoria's Secret, where women seem to think like we have to fit this airbrush model look to be accepted. And a lot of women who dress to reveal things are either competing or they have very low self-esteem and self-worth, and they men to prove their worthiness. If they can get attention, they feel validated and worth and like not alone. And then there are other women too that, oh well, she has like a bigger chest than me, or a smaller waist than me. And also our clothing lines don't cater to bigger women. Like, I spent 4.5 hours trying to find a pair of jeans because nothing would fit me, and it was a nightmare. And it like crap about my size too, because it's not like I'm gluttonous. Like, I eat healthy, I exercise when I can, I have a very active job, so it's not like I'm trying to be fat. But it just seems like a lot of the clothing that's sold is either way too short or way too like where you look like a guy. Like, I feel like I have to almost buy men's clothing for it not to be skin tight and to be an appropriate length. And also, like, I'm at a point in my life where I'm not trying to attract attention. I'm not trying to attract men. The only time I wear less clothing is if I'm hot, because we live in Arizona. We like literally live in an oven, and like, I have the red to prove it. Like, I woke up after going to a festival and I'm lobster red. And like, it's either die of heat stroke. There was one gal that ended up in the EMTs because of her sugar and because of how hot it was. And like, all the women here are kind of forced to kind of layer down, as it were. Whereas in Montana, you layer up so that you can stay warm. So it depends geographically, where are you located, to what you're wearing. Some people do it out of necessity, and other people do it of my body, my choice. I can wear what I want, and if any people want to judge me, then that's what they want to spend their time to. Sure, go ahead. Like, I usually don't pay attention to what other people are wearing unless it's like in my face, and I'm like, whoa. Like, there was one gal at the festival who wore pasties and fishnet bodysuit, and I was like, whoa, oh my goodness, like, whoa. And there was like a transgender that was dressed very similarly, and I was just like, wow, this is very interesting. Okay. And there are children that are gonna ask, like, Mom, what's up with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's also controversy when it comes to like public breastfeeding. Like, it's immodest, it's immoral, don't do it. Other people say it's natural, it's, kids have to eat too. Like, if I have my boobs out, like, it's to feed my kid. I personally find it incredibly uncomfortable. And like, I'm thankful that at some churches they have like nursing rooms where it's like for like parents and like immediate, like, the husband can go in, whatever, but like everyone else is like strongly urged not to, because it's kind of a private deal. But our culture is definitely okay, and they have nudist colonies too, which I find to be really, really interesting.
I mean, yeah, that's true. So I guess a couple of questions. The clothes not fitting, Mystic was talking about earlier, that she has similar problems, and actually Kat agreed that she has similar problems too, but for a different reason. Do you think that has any direct correlation to modesty as an ideology, or do you think that is something, because that didn't exist so much in the early 1900s, the mid 1900s, because all women basically dressed mostly modestly. So businesses and corporations produced clothing that fit all different sizes and shapes of women that were modest clothing. Now within culture, we've completely abandoned that. Now most women within basic society, not within Christianity, within secular society, are wearing more tight, more revealing, more sexually accentuating types of clothes. So now businesses and corporations have a much higher incentive to make those types of clothes. Whereas it would be a poor decision on the part of Navy or whatever Abercrombie and Fitch to produce clothes that don't sell as much. It's more intelligent for them as a business to produce clothes that the secular society, the normal culture, generally speaking, is more prone to wearing, which is going to be the more scandalous stuff, and more form-fitting to women. Do you think the issue with finding clothes for women has more to do with this issue of modesty, or has more to do with just what culture has become and the availability of clothing due to that?
I think it's both. Like growing up, going to like Catholic school, I was always told only dresses. Like you're only allowed to wear a dress. Like shorts are for boys.
It's crazy.
Like very crazy. Like now, like they don't dress like that. Like in their Sunday best. But as a culture, if you flip forward 20 years, I would say it depends on your personal, like, objective, morality wise or convenience wise. Like a lot of women don't care as long as it fits them, and it's really not one size fits all. It's very difficult, at least for me. I don't know, I can't speak for other women and their sizes, but it's horrible trying to find clothing that does fit you, and you kind of just have to take what you can get. It's kind of like voting. The better of the two people.
Yeah.
And at least for me, I feel like our culture, it's whatever is relevant at the time. So right now people want to be looking like the music videos, like what they're seeing online. And so Abercrombie and Fitch and other places are going to cater to, hey, they're successful, and being successful means wearing less.
Yeah.
And you also have to compete if you're dating with a bunch of other people. And so what are women going to do? They're going to show off their assets, be able to find a mate. I guess it's like that whole mating thing, like trying to talk yourself into being desirable. And so like you're going to catch men's eyes, and then you're going to talk, and then you're going to, but even so, like you're using the wrong bait. Like I think that's like a lie of our adversary of, okay, if you show all of this off, you're going to find a long-term mate. But no, what you're really going to attract is someone that likes your body and not your personality. And that's why we have a very high amount of divorce, is because people are in it for the physical. They don't actually get to know each other before they start touching each other. And then once they're married and one of them gets sick or something happens or they have kids and they don't have that physical relationship anymore, then we have a sky high divorce rate.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that let's be friends first. Like they don't do it Song of Solomon style. It's all about how little clothing can I wear to attract someone, and so that I'm not lonely and my self-worth is validated. And if they have a good father, a good relationship with their family, you know, that is, they have that box checked, I guess. Like they don't need a man, they want one. And I think that's a big difference. Do I need this? Do I need this person, or do I want a family? Do I want a person to be around? And they like, women don't have good role models. Like, we don't have anyone to really want to be like aside from like Oprah, but like that's come and gone, and like that's like a whole other. I don't know if like what's underneath your seat. There's like that's gonna be like the best role model for women. We don't have anyone to really. Oh, she doesn't have to show off all of her clothes, and women are like, I think a lot of women don't have good dads, and they're not told you're loved and you're valuable, and you don't need to sell yourself. You don't need to sell your body. You don't need to sell an image. You don't have to look like Katy Perry. You don't have to do all of this stuff to show that you're a valued human being that with thoughts and feelings and emotions, and you're loved. And like, it wasn't until I don't find Christ finds us. But when I found that my value was based off of my identity in Christ and not in acceptance from men, like that was a game changer for me. Because I was like, when I was in my younger, especially my teen years, I was, oh look, I have a body. It's gonna deteriorate and it's gonna sag by the time I'm 90. So let's take advantage while I can.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wear the Daisy Dukes and I had some men that I would date that are like, I like it when you wear skimpy clothing because it shows all these other men of what they can't have. And I get to show off my lady. I was like, oh, okay.
It's
so
horrible.
That mentality. And it also created a really dangerous environment too, because like the little clothes have, men think that, oh, she likes this, so I can touch her, whatever, I can do whatever I want to her, and that creates an incredibly, even if it's not purposeful, I ended up putting myself in a lot of dangerous situations. And quite frankly, I'm very fortunate and very blessed to be still breathing, still alive after like things that had transpired, like what happened. And I'm glad now that like I'm older, I'm wiser, and like I don't feel the need to have to. I mean, every once in a while it is nice to feel attractive, and guys walk out with their shirts off, and women can't do that, like in the summer or even at the pool. I always thought that was so unfair. It's like a double standard. But men have halter tops now, and there's a lot of like the alphabet mafia that will promote like a gender dysphoria, like where we're kind of confused as a gender. Like there's all these different things where God made it really simple, man and female. Now we have like all the letters in the alphabet except for S. Like if you're a straight male, you're pretty much demonized and automatically called a bigot, and it's really sad. But it's really also confusing when I can't tell what clothing is for women and what clothing is for men, because I'm like, wait, it looks like a halter top. Like there's like the men's speedos that are coming out too, and I'm like, like we don't really have a choice of what we get to see other people wear.
Yeah, I agree.
Like we have control over what we say, we have control over what we wear and where we put ourselves. And if we don't want to see something, like I feel like it would be an appropriate thing, like if someone is dressed really, really slutty or really like where it makes us uncomfortable, being like, you're loved, and leave it at that. If I were 17 and I had a woman come to me, instead of saying like, you're so ungodly and you're gonna burn in hell, look at what you're wearing, versus I don't know what you're going through, but you don't have to wear that, and you are loved for who you are, and you are really, really loved. That gentle and that kindness could cause someone to change, or maybe to think about, why am I dressing like this? What am I wearing? What is the purpose of this? And sometimes it's convenience, sometimes it's too darn hot outside, and sometimes it's just there's not options. They are not making clothing that is appropriate anymore. It's get with the times.
I agree. You brought up that was a lot. That was a lot of really good stuff, really good points. And I mean I agree with you 100%. So here, Kat, I'm gonna unmute you, but chill for a second. Maze, you can stay in or mute yourself. It's totally up to you. But I have a couple of questions and I put them in the chat. So should and this is based on something you said earlier on, Maze, is should modesty be a concept or ideology that changes over time, changes culture to culture, as again within a Christian context, not as secular people, as Christians? Should it change over time, or is modesty timeless? I would argue heavily that modesty is timeless. Dressing non-sexually and respecting oneself, it might look different because some of the clothes change over time, but what we wear and what we cover to be modest, quote unquote, the standard should be the same 1,000 years ago to 100 years ago to 2 years ago, because modest is modest. Self-respect is self-respect. And straying away from putting yourself on sexual display, whether it's a man or a woman, I don't believe it's something that shifts with culture. I believe it has shifted with culture. I don't believe it's something that should shift with culture. Modesty is modesty to me. I don't see any way around that personally. Kat, you have yourself muted if you're trying to talk. There you go.
Sorry. I want to briefly go back to the whole leggings situation.
Okay.
For men.
Yeah.
Just for a minute. And I want to say, and I really want this to stand out, I don't believe in body shaming, for one. For two, to correlate with that, I also don't believe that the human body is something to be ashamed of. We all have these same things, just in different shapes and different sizes. And yes, there are some medical anomalies, but as a whole, we pretty much have the same exact thing.
Yeah.
I really, 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 really want that to be heard before I go on, because I feel like that is very important. I think that if, and I'm gonna take you out of the picture, because Lord knows if you walked out of the house in leggings, I would have some choice words for you. But as a whole, I just think that if I were to go to the gym or to a restaurant or to a Starbucks, wherever, and I saw a man wearing men's yoga pants, I would feel like I'm seeing something that I should not be seeing. I would feel like he's putting himself on display for me. And I'm not saying that women dress certain ways to attract men, which to a point we do. And I don't feel like that's really arguable.
Yeah.
We want to look attractive to the opposite sex. It's literally in our nature. And I don't think that that's something to be condemned or to be shamed on any means. But I would literally feel like I'm seeing something I am not supposed to be seeing. Not just because I'm faithful to a man. If I was single, I would feel the same exact way.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm invading that person's space, even though I'm doing nothing wrong at all. And I do find men attractive, but I feel like I would hesitate to look in that general direction. I would feel uncomfortable. I would feel like what his business is now everybody's business. It's everybody's business now. Now we know you, but we don't know your name even.
Yeah.
That's not right to me. So I kind of covered it in the chat. I feel like, and don't come for me, dear God, please don't come for me. I'm wearing leggings right now. Please don't come for me. I feel like leggings are lazy. I really do. In my defense, we did walk like over a mile today in the wilderness. Okay. I don't think that it's like an everyday, occasion to wear leggings. But like, I get it. I get that it's acceptable. And I get it all. But I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the fact that like you can see every part of my butt. I don't like that. That makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't want to like lure men, or because maybe I do want to lure men. For me personally, I just don't think that it's fair to put that out where everybody can see it, or like take leggings out of it. Same thing with like a short top or like a crop top or a top that's cropped on the top, whatever, dude, whatever. I don't think it's right. When I see a woman wearing like a sports bra and short shorts or like biker shorts, whatever they're called, at Walmart, I feel the same exact way. I feel like I'm seeing something I should not be seeing. Like that is not for me. That it's like, why do I have to see that? I would feel that much stronger if I had to see a man in leggings. You know, by no means would I be like less thoughtful in that sense, I guess. I would
Yeah.
still feel the same way. I think that's an important thing. I think it's important because if you think that it would make you uncomfortable seeing a man like that, then what is the actual difference? Like, what is the actual difference?
Yeah, and
there
that's
are
that's my
leggings
point, though. That's my point, because you know me. That makes me uncomfortable. When I can see all of a woman's chest or all of a woman's ass, it makes me uncomfortable because I feel like it is not mine and it is not appropriate for me to see it, but it's kind of forced on you. You have to do work to not see it. You're going to see it, you're going to notice it, and then with self-control, you look away and you don't look at that person again. But the fact that you have to do that, I don't think is right. And then, like you were saying about the yoga pants for a guy, if you could see every curve of his junk, how big everything was, whatever, what if my 6-year-old daughter sees that? That would drive me fucking insane if she had to see that. But young boys have to see this all the time. All the shapes, all the curves, how big a woman's chest is, everything is on display. And I think I would feel no different if I had a young boy who was exposed to this all the time. I would find it inappropriate. And then it leads into the whole culture of pornography and the culture of OnlyFans and just the fact that women's bodies are something that are put on display and are sold in mass, whether it's virtually or in person. And I don't find any of that okay. And I think a lot of it is due to abuse towards women. Like kind of Mace was saying, I do agree that a not all, but a large portion of the porn industry, take that to OnlyFans, take that to prostitutes, take that to actual porn on the internet, professional. I think a lot of them did suffer sexual abuse. And I think there's good statistics behind that. I think there are anomalies to that. And I think there are a lot of women who have been sexually abused, who instead of giving in to the sexual abuse or staying kind of a victim and then victimizing oneself, there are women who go through that kind of abuse as, you know, a young girl or whatever, and then are because of that, are so vehemently opposed to dressing immodestly, to the pornography industry, and to being objectified by men. I think a good portion of them cave into it due to the trauma, and whether it's because they're not strong enough or they don't know what else to do or they're just so traumatized, that's all they understand or feel connection with people about. Regardless, I think the strong, self-aware type of woman goes through that experience and then hardcore opposes it as soon as they're able to escape from it. Does that make sense?
I agree. It does. It does.
Did you
And
have
for
anything else about
context-
the... Oh, go ahead.
For context, I can't relate to the vast majority of y'all as far as the trauma revolving around you have to wear shorts this long and you have to wear dresses and only the boys can wear shorts, so on and so forth. I had none of that.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I had the quite opposite. I was around sexual things all of the time as a child.
Yep.
And that really messed me up. But it messed me up in the direction of I don't ever want to do what these people are doing.
Exactly.
So it had the opposite effect on me, thank God.
Exactly.
But I sympathize with women that go through that because that's horrible. And in another fashion, I was in that same boat, but in a different way that would be entirely too personal to share. But I get it to a point, but I also see the other side of it heavily. And I think that's it. I'm going to cut it off there, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said it because I wasn't gonna point it out.
I know.
But yeah, you're one of the ones that I've known, of a few who have gone through or been around awful things as a kid, and then come out on the opposite side. Whereas a large portion of men and women who experience trauma as a young child or a young adult end up caving into the trauma. And then even though they're not being victimized, they victimize themselves and continue it on. And it can be for, an array of different reasons, but the result is the same, that they continue to victimize themselves. All right, one more question, and then Mystic says she has an answer to one of these questions. So the second question was this: men can modestly dress themselves at the gym. I go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm there very early, so I'm there with like kind of the hardcore gym going people. There are men who choose to wear modest clothing at the gym. I consider myself one of them. And they're confident in their physical strength, the muscles that they're earning while they're there, the physical outcome of their dedication in the gym. And then on the other hand, there are a lot of men who go to the gym wearing immodest, in my opinion, gross things, where their body is out and it's for no other reason than to show off, to peacock to the women who are at the gym and to get attention. So to me, it's a good example of kind of how men are no different. It's just less common and less highlighted because men are much more sexual creatures. So we're much more driven towards that. So the focus has always been on women. But within the gym context, I don't see any difference. There are men who dress gross and flex in the mirror, and you can watch them looking for a woman's eyes to see if she's watching them, flexing and lifting and grunting, doing gross sounds in the gym. It's all for show. It's all to get attention. It's all to get women to look at them, which is a very similar type of situation. And then, in their day-to-day life, they wear more revealing clothes that show off the muscles that they have. Whereas a man who is just as big, just as strong, just as muscular, just as cut, can wear more modest clothing, where all of those physical gains are for his partner to see, and not for every woman on the planet to see. And especially not for him to intentionally take actions to put his physique on display so that women will see it. Kat, do you have anything to say about that, or you want me to bring Mystic in?
I have tons to say about that, but I can give you a quick sum.
Okay, go.
Earlier, I think at least two of us, well, not me, two of you guys had said something about the fact that men that men don't receive the same kind of negative attention based upon what they wear. I strongly disagree. I really do. If you even watch any of let's keep it simple, the early 2000s, all of the movies where there was like a douchey guy who worked out, went to the gym, and wore certain types of clothing, who did not make fun of him? Like, let's be honest, or those types of men. Because I distinctly remember being in high school and still making fun of the dudes who walked around like they had bulging biceps so that like they couldn't just put their arms by their sides when they walked because their muscles were just so big.
Yeah.
We do make fun of men and we do judge men. There's still people that are like, oh, that guy's mowing his lawn with no shirt on. What a douchebag. Like, we do talk crap about what men wear. I mean, hell, men started wearing short shorts like less than a decade ago. We all drag them. I was one of them. Now go and look at your grocery store, Walmart, wherever they also sell clothing. Go and look at the other high-end stores at the mall or whatever. Guess what is back in fashion for the men? Short shorts, 5-inch seams. But we are still making fun of them. I really want that to be understood. We are still making fun of them. Yeah. There's a certain type of man that wears things like that. There's certain types of men that wear the tight-fitting, what is it, the armor, what is the armor one?
Under Armour.
That one, that wear those shirts that are super thin. Like, some of them, you can see their tattoos and everything. Mm-hmm. Again, not my business, but I'm seeing it. Like, what is the difference between men like that and men that you described in your question to a woman doing that same exact thing? Because the difference that I think is there is that it's empowering for women, and those men who do it want attention. and that they're douchebags, which I don't disagree with, by the way. I don't disagree with it at all. In fact, Joe, we know one specific guy that goes to our gym every now and again that we both, and I mean it with love, but we do make fun of him. The whole gym knows when this guy is doing a deadlift. You can't not know it. It is absurd. And what he wears just perpetuates the kind of person you know he is, even though you've never talked to him, but you know him.
Yeah, so pause real quick. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm so glad you brought all that stuff up, because that is a great segue into what I was kind of saying about women earlier, where it seems that once I meet a woman and I speak with her, I can tell whether she's the type that would dress modestly or doesn't. And the women that I tend to respect due to the way they carry themselves, talk about themselves, their confidence, whatever, are modest women. And the women that I don't respect end up being women who dressed immodestly. What you just said is a great example how it's exactly the same, in my opinion, in my experience, anecdotally, for men. The men that the way they carry themselves is obnoxious. It's not confident, it's cocky or self-absorbed or attention-seeking. These are men I don't respect, and they end up dressing and acting and behaving a certain way. And then alternatively, men who are more modest in the way they dress, even if they're just as big, just as strong, just as good of a protector, just as good of a financial provider, whatever, end up being men that I do respect. And they end up also being men who dress normal, in normal clothes, aren't yelling at the gym, grunting, slamming weights, trying to get eyeballs, trying to get attention, because they have self-respect, they have confidence, and they get their self-respect and confidence from either God or a spouse or both. It's not from random human beings who they can just catch a glimpse of their attention and feel good about themselves temporarily. They're more finite things. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was a really good example. For sure.
I feel like that covers the vast majority of it.
Okay.
I can always ramble, but I don't want to because it's late. So
yeah, we gotta close out soon.
That's about it. I just really want everybody to remember that we do judge how men look.
True.
We do.
True.
Even men judge how other men look. We
100%.
all do it.
100%.
And whether we like it or not, we are judging people when we meet them. It doesn't have to be a negative judgment either, but we are taking in information with our eyes and we're deciphering it while we're just talking about how nice their dog is and I hope you guys enjoy your walk or whatever. Like, you get pieces of information about that person.
Yeah.
Whether you're conscious to it or not is one thing, but scientifically, that's what happens.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you can't. That's always bothered the hell out of me on two fronts. And Mystic, I'm actually, I'll do it right now. Kat, you're out. Let me know if you want back in before we close. Otherwise, Mystic, you're unmuted, so you just have to unmute yourself. But on two, actually no, just go ahead, Mystic. So you had an answer to one of those questions?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Let me find it. A lot was said.
Yeah, it was.
So the first portion about modesty being timeless or changes over time.
Yeah.
I think that inherently the idea of modesty is timeless and it should always be a thing. But the problem with it is that as culture develops, like, the subjectivity of modesty changes with it. So it really depends on the person or the like if they're in church or not, or like the culture of that person who's like perpetuating the idea of modesty. It subjectively depends on what they believe is modest or not, because it used to be where women had to wear like dresses all the way to the floor, and if you saw her ankles, that's immodest. I know in other cultures that's how it is, but like in America that's not how it is right now, so I'm just going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But like that's how it used to be, and now it's not like that at all. So adopting another idea of modesty, like, well, women just have to wear baggy pants and like hoodies all the time because that's modest, like I absolutely don't agree with that. And it's really difficult to say, like, I don't know, like, obviously I agree that modesty is timeless, but in order for us to keep it as timeless, we have to nail it tangibly on the head. Like, well, what is modest? And the majority, probably almost all of the standards that churches have, which is my experience. So I'm talking about that. Like the standard that they have with it, I absolutely don't agree with. So I could be being modest, but every church would kick me out. Does that make sense?
Yes. So then I would follow up with, should modesty be subjective at all? Or should it be objective?
See, if it's objective, it forces women into a box like we had been like 100 years ago.
It forces everyone into a box. If it just like we were saying with men at the gym and like men with the tight pants, it forces everyone into a box.
Yes, but I also see it's a little bit different. Like at the end, which you guys were talking about, like how we talk and like judge men negatively as well. Like I know we do, but the one key thing that I noticed whenever you guys were talking about it was whenever you judged a man for dressing a certain way, it was always he's being an idiot or he's being silly, he's being an attention seeker or whatever. Mm-hmm. But whenever we judge women, it's she is inherently the problem. She's traumatized. She is inappropriate. She is a slut or whatever. So it's
I don't agree with that. I judge a lot of women simply based on what they're wearing because I find it inappropriate. So maybe in general, or maybe with younger people or whatever, but personally, I don't at all track with that. I'll immediately judge a woman or man based on how they're dressed. And then kind of what my point was that if I end up getting to know them, the way they're dressed being inappropriate usually matches perfectly with their personality and the way they carry themselves. Obviously not totally true all the time or anything, but I would just say that. So if it literally almost always, anecdotally for my life, has lined up perfectly. Women who dress in inappropriate ways end up being women as I get to know them I have absolutely no respect for, and it has nothing to do at that point with how they're dressed. And the same thing for men. Men who dress a certain way, it's the same thing. Personally.
Yeah, it's just the product of how they internally think.
Which tells you there's a connection. Which tells you certain women and certain men feel the need, and in some way it's got to be unhealthy to portray themselves in that fashion. So then wouldn't it be positive if modesty was simply objective? Women, you are to cover your sexual parts. Those are for your husband. Within a Christian context. Again, we're not secular people. We're in a Christian context. And men, same thing. Should you be flaunting your strength, which your wife is attracted to and relies on for protection and is sexually, or should men cover that up and save it for their wife?
Yeah, no, that's the part, like, I do absolutely agree with that. It's just, I'm realizing that I've always believed I've been a really modest person. And now I'm realizing after this conversation that you guys will think that the majority of my clothes are absolutely not modest. And it's like, so what, like, I definitely do cover up as much I can, but it's like, I don't know.
And maybe you're an anomaly. Maybe if I saw you, whereas I know you first now, and I respect you, I appreciate you, I respect you, I think you're phenomenal. Maybe if I met you, I'd be like, oh, I don't like the way you dress, but I already have respect for you. So then in my head, whether it's subconscious or conscious, I would have to make those two things cohesive, which for me is difficult because 99.9% of the time, if I respect a woman, she ends up being modest. And when I disrespect a woman or a man, they end up being immodest. But maybe you're a good example of how that's not always true.
Well, that's also, like, how you explained it. That's also, like, it kind of makes me feel even more so that modesty is pretty subjective, because to me, like, leggings and like biker shorts and like things like that, that's modest. Like, I've never really had a problem with it. But like, if you don't think it's modest, then you would think I'm immodest. So it's
and
like,
that's kind of the struggle. So then modesty isn't timeless. It's contingent upon culture, because what they would have considered modest in the early 1900s, I guess if the early 1900s Christian community saw the way the Christian community now dresses, they would be disgusted and say that all of us are going to hell. So it's not timeless.
Yeah, but back then there were also other social standards that are extremely different that we're free of now. So
Absolutely. But the way a human being covers or doesn't cover their body has been virtually the same since human existence began. You either were naked or you were clothed or you were somewhere in between. So I guess just like the final question, I mean, we can do a part 2 to this one because I really do have to jump off. Is modesty objective or is it subjective? Because if it's subjective, that means we constantly have to be redefining what is modest and what is not. And I think that's the exact reason that women have been abused over time with modesty, because it changes depending on what kind of church it is, how they feel about it, how strict are they, how traditional are they. There's no way to win that shit. Someone's always going to be a victim of that because who the hell knows?
I think in my head, how I define modesty is it directly correlates with skin. So, and also the whole like men wearing tight leggings and women wearing tight shirts and skin, anything like that. I feel like that's what I define as immodest. But if I wear like tight shorts or tight pants, like my skin is covered. Like there's no way. Like that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the question is modesty about skin or no skin, or is modesty about our value, our sexual value being available to who it's supposed to be available to, being your spouse or everybody who happens to come in contact with you? It's multifaceted, you know? That's why it's so complicated.
I also think that a good like point of view of it is, well, how much is the person out in public searching for it? How much with my eyes am I objectifying people on a baseline? Like how much is it on my mind? Because this is why this conversation is really hard for me. I don't notice when I'm out in public. I don't notice how much or how little people are wearing, like what clothes they're wearing. So it's like, how much are you looking for it? Because I could look for it when I try, but like if a girl's wearing leggings, unless it's outright not correct, like I'll notice. I mean, I won't notice unless it's that situation. So like it has to come down to the person and how they're viewing strangers and whether like where is your brain at? Like how much are you looking for it on the surface level of like objectifying someone or something, you know?
For sure. And that's condition of the heart and intentions. But then you're taking it very subjective again. And that's what we keep kind of having to pull out of the subjectivity of it. Because if it's subjective to each person's individual upbringing, individual experiences over their childhood and then their early adult life, then everybody in the world is going to have a different opinion. There's absolutely no way to make any sense of any of this. So it kind of has to be talked about and looked at and discussed objectively, where I have no past with anything. I have no trauma with anything. Just looking at the facts, what it is, what things mean, what someone's value is, who that sexual value should be shared. It's got to be objective. Otherwise, we just go all day long and everybody's going to have a totally different, view due to their upbringing. I think that's what kind of makes it difficult.
And I mean, like, I will state, like, anybody who didn't hear, I have so much trauma with this. I am like so mad about this because of the way that people treat each other and everything. So, and I'm mad about how complicated and everything is. And that's
No, I
don't
agree.
really have much else to say.
Okay, well, good, because we got to go. We got to go. So,
I know.
I'll mute. Thanks, mister. I'm going to mute you. All right, we have to wrap it up. I got to get to bed. I wake up very early. But the last point there, Rodriguez, you made, I think a lot has to do with somebody's body type. Certain people are critiqued more than others, and it's not okay. I agree with that because that's true in reality. But I think, to me, nothing changes. Whether you're overweight, whether you're perfect 10 and have a phenomenal body, I don't personally care. So whereas that may be true in general, possibly, again, there's subjectivity to that. So personally, I don't care if you're 300 pounds or if you're 90 pounds. It's what are you making available to the general public? And to me personally, I value sex so much I think sex is such a valuable, beautiful thing that is only to be shared with the person you are with. That for me, subjectively, is open and close of the book. It's done. If you're making the one thing that is for nobody else on the planet other than your spouse available in any way to the general public or to women or men of the opposite sex who might have interest in you and might feed off of what you're revealing sexually, I find that immodest. Because to me, that's more objective. Are you being sexual? Are you showing your body, whether you're a man or a woman, to the opposite sex and letting their minds run wild when this is something that should only be shared with your partner, solely with your partner? But I think it's tough. And I agree with pretty much everything that was said. And everybody said very different things. So it kind of shows the complexity of it. So I think we probably want to do this again Thursday. If anybody has any bullet points, any conversation starters, any specific questions, or an article or studies or whatever, video, news article, if you guys want to send that stuff to me, I'll prep it ahead of time. And then we can just kind of run through it in a more cohesive way next time. Otherwise, I will have some things prepared for just to get things started. Let's pray real quick. Let me see if we've got anything over here. Remember, you can drop things in the prayer request portion, and then we'll go over that when we do this. All right. So obviously next meet will be Thursday, 6 p.m. for the Bible study, and then 6:45-ish for this discussion afterward. God, we want to pray for Shannon. She's still recovering. That's why she was out tonight. So we pray that she just fully comes back around, because what she had gone through, the medical issue, is, from what I understand, is relatively severe. She seems to be doing well. Recovering. Her husband has been phenomenal as far as support goes and being there for her as she goes through this. So we just pray for a continued recovery for her. Beyond that, I want to pray for everybody who's been through something traumatic that has to do with purity culture or modesty, because it's done more damage than I think a lot of people understand, specifically within a Christian context, which is sad and disheartening. God, we definitely know that none of your intention with the concept of being modest, which is a biblical concept, was ever intended or meant to cause shame to women or cause regret to women or make women victims. We also know that the concept or ideology of modesty, per what you put out through scripture, has nothing to do truly at the core of it with women being responsible for men's lack of self-control. Men's self-control is men's self-control, unless a woman is pushing herself on a man. So I pray that women understand that, whether they've been through traumatic things or not, that they're not at fault for any of that. And that women who've been through traumatic things within purity culture are able to heal from that, understand their self-respect, understand their value, and understand that they are loved, and that they're able to find a husband, if that's what is meant for them, that truly appreciates and truly understands and truly respects them for who they are, and doesn't ever spark up any of that old trauma, because it's been severe for a lot of people. I also want to pray for culture. It's an absolute dumpster fire. I pray that you open people's eyes, that you open people's minds. I really like what May said about loving people rather than condemning them for the way that they dress or their behavior or actions or anything like that. So I pray that people here specifically, but beyond this little group, people can love people out of what culture is going through right now, because culture is broken. And if you look at the core of that, culture is broken because people are in pain and they're confused. It's not necessarily because people are evil. So I pray that this group, but beyond this group, everybody can try to make a genuine effort to love people out of their confusion and love people out of their pain, no matter how silly what we think they're doing or how much damage what they might be doing is causing. Because Maze is absolutely right that condemning people does not change people. It's very rare. But loving people can change people. I pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to bed. I am exhausted. So Thursday, 6 p.m. Bible study, that is on YouTube. Tattoo Theist on YouTube. If you ever want to watch the recordings of these, they are on Rumble, unedited, and then an edited, if necessary, version to comply with YouTube's terms of service will be on YouTube under the podcast tab. Please remember, I can only edit things for YouTube. What's said goes on Rumble 100%. I love you guys. If you have anything you need to add or whatever, just shoot me a DM. I'll go through as much of it as I can this evening. But you guys are wonderful. And I will see you on Thursday and talk to you all throughout the week. So everybody have a lovely evening.